Hello students, this lecture is also in continuation with my previous lectures on road and railways. Now today I will take you to air transport. After this discussion, you will be able to understand the factors influencing air transport, World Air Transport System, the world pattern of air routes, and air transport in different countries such as USA, Canada, Europe, Asia, India, air transport in Latin America, Africa, and Australia. Besides that, I will also discuss few issues related to air transport. The use of aircraft and development of air transportation belong to 20th century. The countries which took the lead in developing commercial air routes in the world were France, Belgium, Netherlands, and the UK. These countries after the First World War put to use their experience of flying and the accumulated planes for commercial aviation, primarily for the purpose of maintaining communication with and defense of their colonies. The USA entered in the field of commercial aviation after 1927. Lack of colonial interest was one of the factors for her delay. The real progress of air transportation, however, started after 1946. Now you may remember this particular era because it is very significant. Why? This era is known as the World War II era. The World War II gave a great impetus to the development of aerial transport and period between 1946 and 1956. This was characterized by quick development of new equipment and by a big upsurge in the volume of air travel. The greatest innovation of the period was the application of jet propulsions to transport aircraft. Air transport differs from all other forms of transport in that it is three-dimensional. Since aircrafts are not tied to the surface and have the ability to fly above terrestrial obstacles, air routes in a purely theoretical sense can be laid in any direction, and in fact it is commonly said that aeroplane has the freedom of the air and freedom of action denied to any other form of transport. Such freedom, however, is largely illusionary. In the first place, movement of commercial purpose is normally channeled along carefully prepared routes. Secondly, movement may be restricted by political considerations, some countries banning flights across their territory for the security or other reason. Thirdly, aircraft need airports just as surely as ships need harbors and port installations, and aircraft are tied more closely to the ground facilities than is usually imagined. And fourthly, weather condition imposes a greater control upon air transportation than upon any other form of transport. In the early days of air transport, when aircraft had relatively restricted range of flights due to their size, speed, and limited fuel carrying capacity, air routes were so designed as to avoid extensive ocean crossing, high mountains, uninhabited deserts, and vast forest areas. Hence, the very barrier which impeded human travel on the Earth's surface also restricted man's movement by air. However, as a result of the greatly improved performance of aircraft and the greater reliability, physical features in themselves now place no limit upon the choice of routes. In air transport, weather conditions are limiting factors. But due to technological development, aircraft have begun to use the stratosphere where they can fly above the weather. You may observe it while flying, you can see the clouds beneath you. Radar declining techniques, beacons for night flying, and host of other inventions and aids has helped to control the weather. But notwithstanding all these things, it must be emphasized that low clouds, ground mist, fog, ice, dust, storm, and other weather phenomena which either interfere with visibility or affect the performance of the aircraft still hinder flying and create hazards. Now let me take you to the factors which influence aircraft transport or air transport. The air transport is greatly controlled by climatic conditions such as heavy rains, fog and snowstorms causes suspension of flying operations. Safe landing of aeroplanes becomes difficult for ground fogs. Though modern development in meteorology and perfections of aeronautical devices have made air transport more and more independent of weather conditions, there will still be route more favorable situated than other, thus more likely to be chosen. Second factor is relief of the land also influences air operations. Level land are preferable so as to have better landing grounds. Commercial flying has developed in the lowlands and for regions where heavy rains, snowstorms or cyclone weather are not common. And the third is an airway system is determined by the proposal of getting maximum traffic on a given route. Now let me take you to the current position. Air routes today are primarily determined by many factors such as adequate ground facility for operations, and second is availability of traffic for economic working. Air transport is still in general costly. The high cost of air transport is largely the result of expensiveness of the vehicle and the motive power. The total amount of the freight moved by air is still small, less than 2% of the total world figure. Air transport is best suited for the carriage of commodities which are low in bulk but high in value. At the present time, most of the air freight is actually carried in the hold of passenger aircraft. But the expansion of the high technology industries in Pacific Rim, in North America and in Western Europe has generated a growing demand for air cargo services, and highest growth rate have been recorded on US Far East routes. On an average, 740.2 million tons is hauled as air cargo. The leading international airport handling over 0.5 million tons of freight is mentioned in the table. You can refer this particular table and you can know that what is the status. New Tokyo International is 1,361,000 tons, Chicago O'Hare 749,000 tons, New York JFK 1,207, Frankfurt 1,084, Los Angeles International Airport 1,025, Miami International Port 908, Hong Kong International 802, London 698, Seoul 631, Singapore 621, Paris CDG 618, Amsterdam is 585,000 tons. Air services are mainly of two main kinds. The first one is short distance services such as those operating between important centers in a country or making short seas crossing, and second one is long distance services such as the transcontinental and transoceanic flights. There is another distinction in services too. Although most aircraft operate to fixed schedule along regular routes, some aircraft owned by private companies are operated for charter, that is, they can be hired for special purposes or special journey. Charter aircrafts are much used nowadays during the summer holiday season, especially in connection with inclusive tours. Let me take you the word air transport system. The word pattern of air route is very important to discuss in this connection. There are few issues. The first one is the network shows that there is worldwide coverage. Second is an east-west girdle of routes in northern hemisphere is very high. You can refer this particular figure. Longitudinal extension from the latter into 3 southern continents. Fourth factor is a great focusing of route in 3 particular regions: Western Europe, Eastern USA and Caribbean, and also the Southeast Asia. And fifth is several important foci from which numerous routes radiate, such as New York, Chicago, Washington, Seattle, London, Paris, Berlin, Frankfurt, Rome. In India, I can refer Mumbai, Kolkata. Apart from that, Bangkok, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Sydney. These are a best example of such conditions. Now let me take you to air transport in different regions and countries. First, I will begin with air transport in USA. The greatest development in air transport has taken place in United States of America. USA is a country of long distance, so that there are no political frontiers with all the customs formalities to be crossed by aeroplanes. The Atlantic and the Pacific coast of the United States are among the most developed part of the country. And the quickest way to connect these areas is by air. Because of this, the number of people wishing to use this quick method of contact between the two far-flung borders of USA is very large. In the USA, air transportation has tremendously developed connecting points from coast to coast. The airways carry not only passengers but also vegetables, fruits, fish, manufactured products and mail. Cargo planes from Miami and other countries in the USA carry articles such as poultry, cattle, automobile, machinery, refrigerators, etc. to Latin American countries. United States alone is served by 9,000 air terminals, has over 150,000 registered civil aircraft and accounts for almost half of the world's air passenger traffic. There are several feeder routes, regional trunk routes and transcontinental routes in USA. The chief transcontinental routes are between North Atlantic ports and San Francisco, Los Angeles and Seattle on the Pacific coast. There are more than 7,000 airports, nearly half of which are privately owned. The factors responsible for the development of air transport in USA include large size of the country, large population, high standard of living, great development of industry, large international trade, participation in scientific, political and other national and international organizations, and of course, a very large tourist travel. So, despite all the factors that foster participation in the international aviation, only 1/4 of the passenger ton miles of all USA airlines are international traffic, as against 4/5 of those of the airlines of the Western Europe. The major routes of the US international air fleet serve 6 district areas. Which are these district areas? The first one is transatlantic to Europe, second is Canada, third is transatlantic to Africa and Asia, fourth is trans-Pacific to Asia, Australia and Pacific Islands, fifth is Middle America and sixth is South America. So, after discussing the air transport in USA, it is also important to discuss air transport in Canada in continuation with this. Although Canada has only few airlines operating at an international and national level, they have a greater total ton mile of traffic than those of any other European countries except the UK and France. Domestic air traffic comprises nearly 60% of the passenger and cargo traffic and 80% of the air mail. Canadian Airways extended primarily east-west in southern agricultural, manufacturing and mining areas of the country. In Canada, the largest airline company is Trans-Canada Airline with Montreal, Toronto and Vancouver as the busiest air terminal. So, after this, let me discuss briefly about the air transport in Europe. Europe is the most of the countries have their own national airlines. After US, the greatest volume of air traffic is found in Europe. Western Europe has nearly 1/4 of the world's international airlines and 1/5 of the world's domestic and territorial airlines. The airways in Western Europe form a dense network. Every capital city and other important cities are served by airlines. The United Kingdom has as many as 15 airlines. The Western European airlines account for 1/4 of the world ton-mile of passenger, freight and mail air traffic, and 4/5 of this is international air traffic. 3/4 of the total ton-mile of air traffic is accounted for by passenger traffic, and 85% of the passenger traffic is international. This is due to the small size of the country's intensive use of highways, railways and inland waterways, the small number of domestic airlines and the comparatively large number of international airlines serving many distant regions. The major air terminals of Europe are London, Paris, Rome, Madrid, Berlin, Vienna, Geneva, Moscow, etc. England to Australia. This air route is one of the busiest and important air route. This starts from London and follows many important countries or points such as Athens, Gaza, Baghdad, then Sharjah, Karachi, Delhi, Kolkata, and then it reaches to Darwin and Brisbane and finally reaches to Sydney. Compared to UK, in Russia, the Aeroflot is the principal airways totaling 4 lakh kilometers. A dense network city of connects Russia, west of Urals, western Siberia and Central Asia. 21 routes connect Moscow with 28 capital cities of Europe, Africa, Asia and America. Passenger traffic of Aeroflot comprises 90% of the ton-miles of freight and passenger traffic. Russian international air routes are mostly controlled by Moscow, Leningrad and few other regions. Russia and other countries of former Soviet Union are also well connected by air services. Now, after discussing major important regions of the world, let me take you to air transport in Asia. Most Asian countries have their own international airlines, several of them traversing the Pacific. Hawaii is a crossroad of route from Western North America to Asia and other countries. One group of airlines goes to Tokyo and Singapore, the other one southwest to Australia and New Zealand. Traffic availability and some political consideration causes some airlines to use route longer than the Great Circle. The Great Circle distance between San Francisco and Manila is about 11,200 km. You should always remember these important connecting points. However, only a few flights use this route for the reason the route from San Francisco through Fairbanks, Siberia, China, Tokyo to Manila is about 1,280 kilometers longer than the Great Circle route is preferred because of the greatest traffic potential. Important international routes run across the monsoon fringe of Asia and Beirut, Tehran, Karachi, Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Bangkok, Singapore, Hong Kong and Tokyo. These all are the important international airports in Asia. A network of airways crosses Western and Southeastern Asia. In China, the first air flight between Shanghai and Chongqing took place in 1928, but very little progress has been done till 1950. Considerable progress was made in air transport between 1950 and 1958. Today, there is a well-developed network in China proper and most of the principal cities have air links. China now has external air links with several of other countries. Beijing, Shanghai and Canton are the great hub of the airways network, but China is still having relatively lesser air transport facilities. China has fewer international air connections than any other country. One route connects Beijing with Moscow and another Beijing with Pakistan. So, after China, let me discuss about air transport in Japan. Air transport is well developed in Japan and operates internal and international services. Tokyo is the focal point of the international air transport. The other countries of Southeast Asia are also having international aviation. Southeastern Asia accounts for nearly 3/4 of the Asian ton miles of air traffic. Similarly, countries like South and North Korea, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. are well connected with air transport. In only a few countries such as Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Japan, India, Taiwan and Thailand is international traffic greater than domestic traffic. The passenger traffic in Southeastern Asia comprises nearly 3/4 of the total ton miles and is divided equally between the international and domestic. In Western Asia, nearly 3/4 of the ton miles traffic is accounted for by passenger traffic. Now, you may be thinking since long that I discussed many things about air transport in Asia. What is the status of air transport in India? So, let me discuss about air transport in India. As you know that India is situated on the strategic route from end to Europe, Asia, Australia and Africa. Though domestic traffic is not commensurate with her area and size of population, yet international traffic is important. India has air transport agreement with 93 countries and her flights are regularly scheduled for these countries neighboring as well as distant. Air India, the international carrier, and Indian Airlines, primarily a domestic carrier, serves 17 countries. The international airports are Indira Gandhi International Airport, Sahar, Mumbai, and there are different, whenever you visit any airport, please see what is the name of the airports such as Dam in Kolkata and Tiruvanthapuram and different Biju Patnaik Airport in Odisha. So, please try to know the name of your own airport where you are residing. Besides these, there are 92 major international and minor aerodromes meant for domestic air traffic. After India, let me also discuss about air transport in Latin America. The Central and South American countries have developed air transport and all the capital cities are connected with international flights. Latin America operates more international airlines than does Europe, but many of these countries are small and most of them provide domestic services only. Airlines including BOAC, KLM, Air France, and Swiss Air operates regularly to Latin America. Although Airways cover remote areas of South America such as Tierra del Fuego and Amazonia, the main networks are within 400 kilometers of the coast. The main focal points are Caracas, Bogota, Lima, Santiago, Buenos Aires, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro. All capital and large urban centers have regular air services. International traffic is significant in all countries of South America. So, till now I have discussed the major regions of the world. Only one is left, that is Africa. 20 African countries have their own international airlines, but only 4 countries have domestic airlines. This is mainly due to the fact that most African countries have long been European colonies and remained underdeveloped. Africa is served by international airlines following the East African routes through London, Rome, Cairo, Addis Ababa, Nairobi and Johannesburg, with Mauritius, Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. The Central Africa route is through Paris, Kano, Lagos and other important towns such as Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, etc. While West Africa route goes through London, Madrid, Accra and other important cities. In addition, many African countries have their own air domestic services. So, after Africa, let me discuss briefly about air transport in Australia. In a large country like Australia, where population is less and widely scattered and half of the population live in near 6 major cities, the development of internal air services has been of enormous value. Thus, Australia has a well-developed internal air services and is also well connected with other parts of the world. Sydney is its most important international airport. New Zealand has also well-developed internal and external air transport facilities. Auckland, Wellington and Dunedin are principal airports of New Zealand. After the above discussion, now you can know and understand that the development of air transport is very unequal at the world front. Some countries have well-developed international and domestic air transport, while some have well-developed domestic air transport. India has developed its international as well as domestic air transport. More infrastructural development is on the way, and there are many challenges in front of India and other countries too to develop their air transport in their own country.